Good afternoon. Hello. Everyone's woken up nicely, had their snacks. People in the back benches are nice and happy. I know because I was in engineering and I know how the guys in the back bench feel. So, when I was asked to talk today, I thought of many different things I could really talk about. But one of the things I kept coming back to because I thought about what the audience is, right? And I'm from Kakinada, and I know this because I've been away from here for almost 16 years. And there's a word called the small town mindset that I've heard many times, right? And that kind of started off from a certain point. It starts off from the point when someone asked me a certain question, which is generally, I think I still get asked that question, which is, where are you originally from? And I would say, Kakinada. And then they would say, where is that? And I would say, no, it's a small town, now it's a city, it's along the coast of Andhra Pradesh, it's about 3 hours from Vizag. And this is a slightly faster explanation that I've come to now, because it used to generally go like this. I would say Kakinada, they would say, where is that? I would say in Andhra, they would say, is it near Hyderabad? Then I would say, no, it's along the coast. Saying, where along the coast? I would say, have you heard of a place called Vizag? Saying, yes, and I'm like, yes, finally somebody knows a place. I would say it's about 2 hours away from there. And as soon as I said I'm from a place like that, what I generally always heard, or I kind of sensed was, okay, he's from a small town, right? And this started from the day I left Kakinada to go to Bangalore, and then went on to Pune, then went on to Bombay after that. And it's generally never used in a nice way. You know, it's always used because you kind of enter a crowd and you suddenly feel like you know a little less compared to everybody else there. You know, you maybe not really experienced as many things as they have. You don't really fit in because you kind of dress different. It was my own fault. I went to boarding school and I was wearing the cool chain from Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, which is not the coolest thing to do. And then at some point of time, you kind of feel like you come from a slightly older world. Everybody around you is suddenly ahead of you. They've experienced, and I'll reiterate, they've experienced more things, they've had more opportunities. And then slowly but surely, what I really felt were a certain set of things. I felt like I had a lack of opportunities to learn more things. I'd had a lack of avenues to experience more things. I felt like a misfit, and I felt like out of date. Now, these are all emotions I felt in the first, let's say, 3 to 4 years of leaving Kakinada. And and kind of, it did play on my mind. It did give me a certain level of inferiority as a complex. And I said, how, and I dwelt onto that. But before I get into this, I think it's important to understand where this all comes from, right? Think about how information has flowed across the world from ages ago, right? Information always came from specific spots. Whoever controlled the information had more power. That's why cities were always more powerful than smaller towns or villages. They controlled what information you got. They controlled what you knew, what you didn't know. They made sure that certain things were fed to you in a certain way. And as that happened over time, people learned what they knew, and this is where cities controlled. That's how capitals came to be. That's how countries took over other countries. That's how entire civilizations came to be. And somewhere along the way, something changed. Because at a point in life when you have questions but you didn't know where to get them answered from, except for people who controlled it, you went to a time where you can now just take out your phone and Google it. Right? So suddenly, it's no longer a scenario of the cities have more information than the town. Or the bigger cities have more information than the smaller cities. Everybody has the same information. Right? And this is a clear thought that at some point of time rang in my head, a little late, but it still rang in my head. So why am I telling all of these things? What is the point of this entire long history lesson meets old story, meeting sob story that I've given you. The whole point was, from these things is where I really came to understand what a small town mindset was. Right? Now, and the true, how do I put it? The whole trick behind it, one second, is to the fact that I didn't know, I hadn't learned enough, I hadn't experienced enough, I was a misfit, and I was out of date. But then from there, I found this. Now, unless some of you all can read gibberish, you will not be able to understand what that is. Right? What that was, opportunity is the flip side of insecurity. You can choose to be the person who's insecure about the things you haven't had, haven't experienced, haven't been part of, or you can choose to turn it around and make it your own opportunity. And the day you start doing that, this term, in a lot of ways, becomes your strength rather than your weakness. And it's from that point that you really come to a point of looking at life in a very different way. Morgan Freeman said this: I always tell my kids, if you lay down, people will step over you. If you keep scrambling, if you keep going, someone will always give you a hand. Always. But if you got to keep dancing, you got to keep your feet moving. So, if you don't have the avenues to learn, ask. Search for it online. Ask anybody you can find. The first 5 guys might say, I don't want to hear what you're saying. I don't know the answer as well. But the 6th guy will tell you. Or maybe at some point of time, you will come to the aspect of saying that, okay, I don't know this, but I'm a person who's confident enough to understand what it can be, and to understand what that can be, and the fact that I have character will help build that knowledge in some way. Right, so that's all you need. If you genuinely believe that even though I don't know this and I haven't learned this, if you believe that you have the right character for it, you will figure a way to do that. I once had a boss in my first job who turned to me in a meeting, just filled with people who were much more senior than I was. And he was talking, and some of you would have seen this reality show called Roadies, right? He was that bald guy in that show. He was my first boss. So obviously because he shouted at people so much, I was scared of him as well. So when he asked that room of people, and he said, this is what I'm talking about, who has an opinion about it? And I said, I do. And at that point, he turned to me and said, what do you know about this? I said, nothing, but I still have an opinion about it. Right. And at some point, that really helped me break the ice with him. He took me aside, we had a long conversation, and then I learned more about it. And that's the way you learn stuff. Then comes experience. Captain Jack Sparrow in the movie said, the problem is not the problem is your attitude about the problem. If you don't have the experience, it's fine. No one cares. If you can still do it right, you will figure a way to do it right. And that's what really matters. I think experience is important, but it's also important about the attitude towards the problem at any point of time. And if you still can't find a way to experience what you want to experience, it's called imagination. All the people who've invented anything in the world till date didn't know how it was actually made in the first place, which is how they could invent it. If we all set out to make the automobile, knowing how the automobile was made, then we would all had the same car. We wouldn't have had different cars, right? We would all be riding on horse carriages. So the ability to have imagination gives you the ability to have innovation. And that in a lot of ways also balances out experience. Now let's come to the misfit part. When people throw stones at you, you turn them into milestones. That's what Tendulkar said. Right? Now, I'm not claiming to understand entirely how many stones were thrown at him, but I get it. A lot of times people will tell you, you don't really fit in here. I said, fine, that means I stand out. People will say, I don't think you dress right for this entire crowd. So that's fine, which means I have a different way of dressing than you guys. Better or worse, it just makes me different. Right? And as long as you have that kind of a mindset, you will always turn anything which someone throws at you into something that's a milestone for yourself. Okay? And the most important aspect of that is to say that once you've accepted your flaws, no one can use them against you. You know, because nobody's perfect. None of us are. Whoever claims to be is lying. Right? So you're saying that I know this is what is wrong with me. These are A, B, C things, if sometimes go down to Z and even longer, that are really wrong with me. I know these things are wrong with me. That's why I understand what I do in life and I can better them. And that's how you take being a misfit into an extremely positive point in your life. For people who call you out of date, Nelson Mandela said, lead from the back and let others believe that you are in front. Now, I lead a team of about 180 people across India, and I've known one thing. They all know more than I do. They all have a lot more knowledge, have a lot more skill, are way more intelligent than I am in most cases. But that's the point. To be a leader or to do well, you needn't be the guy who has all the answers. You should be the guy standing at the back showing them the right direction. And as long as you can do that, you'll still be the one in front. This is something my grandfather used to tell me. And some of you who would know him from some time ago would, I don't know if he said this to you. He used to always tell me simple living and high thinking. And generally every conversation I had with him had this line somewhere. Right? He was for me the world's most curious man. He was more up to date with technology than anybody was. He had more gadgets than I ever found. And even though he hadn't traveled the world, I think he knew a lot more than most people did. And that for me is the essence of what you say, I have a small town mindset, yes. But that doesn't mean I know less. It actually means I know more. Because that's what I think a worldview is all about. So I'd want to end today by saying it matters not where someone is born, but what they grow to be. Thank you.